It absolutely can mimic almost any other medical condition. You need to get away from the mold.
Dr. Sandeep Gupta is one of the world leading experts on toxic mold illness, a health condition which might actually affect 1 in 5 people worldwide.
It's extremely common. It is probably closer to 20%, which is 1 in every 5 people.
In today's video, he answers the most important questions regarding how you go about fixing this. And if this is the root cause of your health problems, then you really need to know about it. First up, who should suspect toxic mold as a root cause of their health problems?
So the three categories of people who should think about mold as being a likely cause of their health problems is firstly people who have what's called a multi-system illness. If you've got an illness that includes a number of different bodily systems, so let's say you've got the constipation, you've got the abdominal pain, you've got the joint and muscle pain, and you've also got headaches and anxiety and insomnia, then that's what you call a multi-system illness because it's including many different systems of the body. The second category is problems with moisture in your home. And that can include anything from leaks, water leaks that may be from white goods, maybe from the roof, it may be elsewhere, or if you've had any kind of flooding event happen in the past, that could be like a bath running over or a sink running over, extreme water events where you had water in your house. Even if you can't see any visual mold, basically, it's very likely in those scenarios that you will have a significant issue going on with damp and moldness. The third category I wanted to talk about is those who have been undergoing general functional medicine protocols for at least 6 to 12 months. So let's say you've been working with some kind of functional medicine practitioner and you haven't had any improvement with that because it could well be mold that's blocking these treatments and these interventions from working.
So, Dr. Gupta, how common is this really?
Well, it's extremely common. So Dr. Scott McMahon, who's a pediatrician from New Mexico, released a study which was called Alternate Means to Diagnose Chronic Inflammatory Response Syndrome. And he estimated that 11 to 13% of the population were suffering from it based on real life data. And that's only one form of mold illness. There's actually other types, such as allergy and infection or colonization with mold, and also just mycotoxicosis. So I would estimate it's probably closer to 20%, which is 1 in every 5 people, which is extremely common. It makes it one of the most common conditions out there.
For those who haven't watched it already, you can find a 3-hour-long interview with Dr. Gupta on my channel that we did about 7 months ago. Here's a question I get asked quite a lot. So, can toxic mold illness mimic other conditions, and what are the main symptoms?
Static electricity shocks, getting a vibratory sensation in the body. So those would be two of the really specific symptoms. But other than those, most of the symptoms are just non-specific, and they can include any body system, as I said before. Probably the most common ones are fatigue, brain fog, and insomnia. Anxiety is also extremely common. However, it can present in almost any way, mold illness can, and therefore it absolutely can mimic almost any other medical condition. They can present very much like multiple sclerosis. They can present very much like something like rheumatoid arthritis or a seronegative arthritis. They can present very much like inflammatory bowel disease. And therefore, it's really important to know that even if you're given a medical diagnosis, that doesn't still exclude the fact that mold is actually a major underlying causative factor.
Okay, so let's say that someone does determine that they have this problem. They know they've got it. What is the number one thing that they need to do first?
Well, the first thing before you can start getting better from it is to identify what is the source of the problem. If you're pretty sure that you are being exposed to mold somewhere or you suspect it, you've got to find out, do I definitely have mold in my home or not? That's the big question. And so there's a number of different ways of doing this. One is going and doing a mold sabbatical, where you leave your house for a couple of weeks and ideally go tent camping. If you feel a significant improvement, which then worsens when you return home, that's very suggestive of a significant contamination problem in your home. The second way of addressing it, which is quicker but more expensive, is to get a proper mold inspection of your house. But please beware that not all mold inspectors are equal. So you need to find one who has the right qualifications and experience. There is a list available you can get through ICI, which is the International Society of Environmentally Acquired Illness. And this is something that I outline in a lot of depth in my online course, Mold Illness Made Simple.
Dr. Gupta created an entire course on this topic. This basically offers step-by-step guidance on how to address mold illness. This course is called Mold Illness Made Simple, and it is frankly excellent. So I'd highly recommend you guys checking it out. It's in the link below.
The other way around it is to just find people in your neighborhood and interview them and ask them what their process is for identifying mold problems. So for instance, do they do moisture mapping? Do they use several techniques of sampling, for instance, like such as air and surface and plus or minus ERMI testing? Is their job or is their approach to get to the root cause of the problem? Or do they take more of a surface approach where they just like to fog the house or use some essential oils or something like that? Because that latter approach is not going to be sufficient in someone who has a full-blown mold illness.
The question is now, what tests can someone do to identify the immune system problem? So actually testing inside of the body and not just the house.
So the main tests I recommend are, firstly, if you're in the United States and you've got a relatively comprehensive insurance scheme, I would recommend what's called the CRS blood tests. Now that includes C4A and TGF beta 1 and MMP9. So you may have to take the test codes to your doctor. They are listed on the survivingmold.com website. So in addition to those, I would also do VIP and MSH, cortisol, and ACTH. Now, if you're outside of the US or you don't have a good insurance scheme, I would probably recommend doing some form of blood mycotoxin testing. And usually the testing is to the antibodies to the mycotoxins. Now, at the moment, there's two main labs who are performing this. One is called MyMyco Labs, who are in the US, but they can take samples from overseas. And then the other one is called IGL Laboratories, who are in Germany.
Something else that gets asked a lot is the urine mycotoxin test. Is it definitive? Can it replace those other tests, or is it simply just a useful add-on?
I would frame it more as a useful add-on, because the problem is that it is only showing what you're excreting in the urine at that one time. And it doesn't necessarily correlate exactly with your body stores of mycotoxins. And in fact, the worst cases may in fact have no mycotoxins in the urine for some time. And I've seen those kind of cases myself. And the problem is sometimes people can mistakenly understand that a urinary mycotoxin test means you do not have mold or mycotoxins in your body. And that's a big misunderstanding. Really, they're more, I think, more beneficial for answering the question, how is my protocol going and how well am I excreting mycotoxins?
Unfortunately, there's many people who simply cannot afford many of the tests that we've been talking about. So those who are listening, who are wondering what can they do, what is the very least that they need to be doing to get better from this?
You need to de-expose yourself from the mold. If it is your home that is contaminated with mold, you've simply got to get out of there. Now, if it's not possible to find and move to a mold-free residence, which is quite common, and it's quite difficult to find mold-free residences in many areas of the world, then even if it means camping in a tent for a little while in your backyard, you need to get away from the mold. Just do whatever you can. If you can get some really cheap charcoal somewhere, or bentonite clay, or zeolite powder, start with that. It doesn't have to be cholestyramine or Welcol. And yeah, you just need to get some binders on board if possible, and just start there. just get your feet on the earth and connect with the earth and eat good food, drink filtered natural water or spring water if you can, and just focus on healing at every level. It doesn't have to be expensive things. Some of the simple ones are just getting your feet on the earth every day, making sure you're getting some sunshine, focusing on your breathing, trying to slow down your breathing, and then paying attention to your thoughts, making sure that your thoughts are more healing oriented, and trying to look at whether you have any obvious false beliefs which need to be addressed, and focusing on love as much as possible, bringing more love into your system.
So I would love to get Dr. Gupta back on the channel, and I'd really like to pick his brains with regards to some of the more practical aspects, how you go about treating this, what supplements you can use, what diet you can use, other treatments, other therapies, the conventional medications that they use. And I'd like to dig into that and get his thoughts on how people can go about actually fixing this. So if you'd also like to see that, let me know in the comments below. If you have any questions, by all means, drop us a comment and maybe we can come up with something in the future. Thanks, and I will see you next time.